It is Sunday. It is time for the Suburban Ford 7 Sports Cave. If things look a little bit different, it's because we are live on location at Belle Isle for the Chevrolet Detroit Belle Isle Grand Prix. But this is the Sports Cave. We talk about much more than just racing. The Tigers, Lions in action with so much going on. Stephen Tulloch will be joining us later in the show to talk about some new changes within the organization, what's been going on with the leadership committee. But let's get the introductions out of the way first. I am Brad Galli, joined with Tom Leyden, and from the Detroit News, John Niyo. Good to be with you guys this morning.
Guys.
It's been fun. Yeah. Being out here on Belle Isle this weekend, I truly appreciate the people who've said they like this show, they watch this show every week, they like interacting with the show. So it's nice to get that feedback, because when we're in the cave, we're in the cave. So it's difficult
we are no
to get
longer
out.
in the cave.
We're no
clearly,
longer in the
as
cave.
you will hear in the background, probably.
And those sounds you hear in the background, that is the sound of my stomach. I had a breakfast burrito this morning. So much to get to, and as Tom mentioned, please interact with us. Use the hashtag 7SportsCave, and we'll pick up your tweets. You can drive the conversation. So much going on this week, of course, with the Detroit Tigers out on the West Coast for a road trip. It's been a little bit shaky. We talked last week about the pitching staff, 2 weeks ago, really, about where it had been. It hasn't gotten a lot better, and last night, Drew Smyly roughed up for the second time in as many starts.
Now you go first, John. Your thoughts on Tigers?
Well, Drew Smyly, 105 pitches, and he made it through the fourth inning. Or barely made it to the fourth inning. That's pretty hard to handle. And for a pitching staff, the starting staff that had struggled really for the last 10 days, that was another sign of trouble, I think. Now you got Scherzer going again today. They're still in the 1st of June. I will say this. They're still at the 1st of June, 5.5 games up, 10 games over 500. There's not panic, but the one strength of this team was that starting rotation, and you saw when that starts to slip, the whole team goes into a slide.
You know, you've gotten a lot more out of Porcello than I think people ever expected that they would get out of Porcello, but Drew Smyly's got to be a concern. And it's even more of a concern for the fans because of the association inevitably with the trade of Doug Fister. Every time that Drew Smyly takes the mound as a starting pitcher for the Detroit Tigers, he will be linked to that trade. So to start the year 2-4 with an ERA over 4.1, he can't even get into the 6th inning. That's a problem.
The
so he's not just
already taxed.
And the bullpen is dying because they're out there so consistently, and they need to get more out of him. Now, all that being said,
meanwhile, Doug Fister is pitching another great game yesterday. So he's I get you.
And what's tough about Smyly, the last 2 outings, he hasn't gone into the 5th. No walks. He is not allowed to walk. He's the first pitcher, I think, in baseball history to ever go 100 pitches, 4 innings without allowing a walk. So he's not just missing spots. He's getting the ball hit off him. And I think that's the most concerning thing.
You know, it's frustrating to watch a team at times, too, because you want to get invested during the regular season. And I think there's that inherent belief that this team, well, we're going to make the playoffs. So you want to see how they're going to stack themselves up for the run from October 1st to November 1st, and that's what they're built for.
And 2 weeks ago, everybody started to think, okay, well, it is over, and they are just going to roll all the way through. You know, this is not quite 84 Tigers, but something close to that, the way they were rolling. It's not going to be that way. It's going to be maybe not a race, but it's not going to be a pushover, walk-away win for these guys. I think my biggest problem right now, actually, is the lineup is starting to look a little bit like it did a couple of years ago, where 5 through 9 was, what? Nothing, not much. Austin Jackson had a terrible month of May. Alex Avila was getting on base. Now he's not even getting on base. I think you got some issues there. Who's hitting behind Victor? Victor's been great. Miggy again.
Right.
Who's hitting behind those guys?
And, you know, if Andrew Romine's going to struggle as he's struggled mightily at the plate, you got to get a bunt down last night. You know, when you're down a run in the 9th inning against their closer, you got to be able to execute the little things if you're not going to be able to come up with a big hit.
Verlander a bit different, and this is a funny tweet brought out by Gabe Kapler, the former Tiger, now baseball analyst. He said, see you next May when we'll talk about Justin Verlander, 2 bad outings, and say all of a sudden he's got problems. I think he'll get things figured out. I think a couple years ago he changed the way he pitches. He's not the power arm that we expected years ago. The concern for me and Verlander's not there.
No. Well, I think the velocity is an issue because he can't just rear back, and although he did clock 98 there at one point in that last outing. It's not quite there, and so you wonder how much wiggle room he has. He used to have more wiggle room than anybody in baseball, and now he doesn't have it. So if things aren't quite right, he's going to have some rough outings that he just didn't have before.
But it's so much like the Red Wings had become throughout the 90s and 2000s where it doesn't really matter to a certain extent as long as you get in the postseason, because you know, based on their track record, that they have succeeded in the postseason. And if you're going to trot out Verlander, Scherzer, Sanchez, and then Cross your fingers, Porcello continues to pitch and move Smiley back to long relief. You're in pretty good shape. What are they going to do to augment the bottom of their order? And that's a big question. That's going to be more of a concern, I think, as the season moves on.
And it gives us something to talk about for the next few months, like we're talking about it right now.
Exactly.
And football season's even further away, but of course, anytime the Lions
football
do anything,
season's never far away.
We always talk about it. And something interesting, when I was on with Matt Derry on Detroit Sports 105.1 this week, he posed the question to me about leadership. Because as we'll see, Stephen Tulloch talked a little bit about the changing of the guard and the leadership committee that's been created within the organization. Matt's question for me was, is this Matthew Stafford's team? And I think all of us would love for that to be the storyline for this team. So I'll pose this to you two guys. As the Jim Caldwell era has begun, what do you wish the stories would have been the past few weeks?
Well, I think Matthew Stafford suddenly sort of accepting this new regime and new coaching and sort of just saying, yeah, this is a breath of fresh air for me. He kind of came out this week and said, no, it's nothing much different. It's, you know, I think that was a little disconcerting for some people. Yeah. You know, we wanted everybody thinks there's something that needs to be fixed there. He's never going to admit that, even if he does believe that. And we didn't hear it this week. So I think that some people might have an issue with that, and I can understand that.
For me, it's so much conjecture. The NFL has changed so much over the course of the last decade, where there is such a focus on it throughout the entire offseason. And I hate to say this because I understand the passion, but you almost have to take a wait-and-see approach with this team. Because everything that's happening now in terms of installation of the new system, getting used to the new coaching staff, all that's going to happen with every team. And don't read too much into it. It is June. They still haven't gotten to training camp yet. Let's see how they all react to the coaching staff. How are they going to perform in the preseason games, which don't count, but at least give you an indication? Glimpse, right? And then what are they going to do in the first month of the season? It's unfortunately a point in time where you got to wait and see. I'm not happy with the way that they went in the draft and going to get a tight end. I think that they needed to solidify the defense. I strongly believe that you don't win a championship unless you have Pro Bowl / All-Pro defensive players. And Ndamukong Suh is the only All-Pro player that they have had on defense since 2001. You're not going to win championships unless you fortify that. So I didn't love the direction they went, but I'm not going to root against Eric Ebron because of it.
Right.
You want
and
him
there's
to
still
succeed.
time this offseason as well for them to make moves like we've been hoping for the past few years to bolster that secondary. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. Maybe they still want to stick with those guys. And like we've talked about week after week, is this the year that some of these young guys like Darius Slay, Bill Bentley prove themselves as fortified starters? Again, it is June. It's June 1st. There's plenty of time to dissect this.
Slay has looked pretty good. Last week we get a, you know, when you get a 1 day a week to watch them
the big bat down against Calvin.
He looked pretty good. He looked, and I really think they think he's going to be a starting #1 type quarterback in this league. I think this is the offseason where he needs to make big strides. Nick Fairley's the one guy. I mean, we talked about this a month ago. What do we want to see in camp? Well, we want to see Nick Fairley. We haven't seen Nick Fairley. We saw him in his kickball tournament yesterday. Right. He's lost 25 pounds. Thinks he's gotten some motivation and he understands, you know, he's got to play every play the way some of those other guys do, but he also has to be in condition to do that, and maybe he finally is. We'll see.
You know, a point of conversation we could bring up to the fans who are watching us here and something you can chip in with perhaps using the 7SportsCave hashtag. Do you think, and I do, that ultimately Martin Mayhew's tenure here in Detroit may be tied to his commitment to those guys in the back end? Those second, third round draft choices that he's made, picking cornerbacks and basically choosing to go about it that way, that will ultimately define whether or not he's a successful GM with the Lions.
I would disagree, and I would say he's always the same way Jim Schwartz was defined. He's going to be defined by his very first pick, Matthew Stafford. If Matthew Stafford turns into an elite quarterback in this league, Martin Mayhew will be viewed as a good GM in this league. If he's not, he's just not. That's the way the NFL works. But you're right. And Martin Mayhew's a former cornerback who has always sort of had a more critical eye or a different opinion on cornerbacks than a lot of other people, maybe even in his own organization. And I think you're right. There's some truth to that for sure.
We will get into the Lions much more later in the show when Stephen Tulloch joins us in the cave for an interview we taped earlier this week. But we do want to touch, as the engines roar behind us, just for a moment, about the weekend that we've had. Absolutely beautiful. The big win yesterday by Will Power to bring Team Penske finally return to the...
My 7-year-old, I was out here yesterday with my 7-year-old son. He picked Will Power before the race. He won. He couldn't have been happier going home. But it was a great day, and you guys have seen it firsthand all weekend. I mean, everything is... Roger Penske runs a good race. He runs a good event. We saw that with Super Bowl. We're seeing it again here. It was great yesterday. We had a blast out here.
There are good storylines. Fans need to invest, and trust me, when you do invest and you get to know the storylines, you really have more interest in it, and it takes that jump into the pool to commit yourself to this sport, but it's a fun commitment.
Without a doubt. Well, we have so much more ahead on this edition of the Suburban Ford 7 Sportscape. Usually, we come back and Jeremy Johnson goes out with the people. Well, Jeremy was busy this week, so I went to Comic-Con.
Oh, boy.
Looking for sports fans.
Hey, look, you're wearing a costume, too.
That was me in the Captain America, and some guy dressed in a tie outfit. That's next. Stay with us.
The Suburban Ford Sports Cave is brought to you by Wallside Windows. We can do that. We are the factory. Parts galore. Pull your own auto parts and save big bucks. And Feiger Law. Trial lawyers. Civil, criminal, appeals.
Welcome back. It's the Suburban Ford 7 Sports Cave. Brad Galli, John Niyo, Tom Leyden here, live on Belle Isle. Well, with so much going on the island, we're here talking Tigers, Lions. Tom posed a question to the fans using that hashtag 7 Sports Cave about Martin Mayhew, who he's tied to. While we're here, Mike Foss, who's using the control room, complete role reversal. He's hanging out on the couch. What's going on today, Mike?
Actually, I'm over at the bar. I'm taking over the
drink, Mike.
I'm holding down the fort back here. You guys are out on Belle Isle. I've got the whole cave to myself. It's pretty nice. I got a lot of spacious interior in here. Let's get to what people are saying. Actually, some Tigers tweets here, mostly about Drew Smyly regarding him being a starter versus the bullpen. Dustin says Drew Smyly all over the place, rarely gets past the 5th inning, not really a starting pitcher, better in the bullpen. And then also Danny asking if it's time to move Drew Smyly back to the bullpen. And also throw another one out to you guys, the idea of Jabba Chamberlain coming in place of Joe Nathan in situations that might call for it. Guys, your thoughts?
The Drew Smyly to the bullpen thing is an interesting thought.
He'll be back there eventually.
But we saw what Robbie Ray can do as the 5th starter, and I think the answer is right there.
Unless he's pitching against the Twins or the Astros. Yeah, no. You know what? I think what they want, and I think we heard Ausmus say it last night after that start, he wants Drew Smyly to pitch like he's in the bullpen with that sort of aggressive attacking, you know what, I'm coming after you. And he wasn't. He's nibbling. Whatever he's doing, he's not coming in there attacking hitters. And that, you know what, they said the same thing about Verlander for a couple of starts, and he came back with the old Verlander, and I think we saw that. That's what they need from Smyly right now.
What jumps out forever to me about Smyly was that amazing appearance that he made going back a couple of years at Yankee Stadium, where he held down the fort after Valverde had given up the tying home run against the Yankees in the playoffs. That's the mentality you're talking about.
He's not scared. He's not a scared guy.
He can do it.
Since he was a rookie, he came out with that confidence.
And you got to find it, but it's a different role, and there have been different guys that they put in here. And please, no one bring up the Phil Koch experiment when they moved him into the starting rotation a few years ago, because
we're not
Smiley's
that level.
eons above what Koch can do as a starter. That was an experiment, and I think you got to give him some time.
And again, I go back to they're 10 games over 500. It's not time to start panicking with whether it's Jabba, the closer, or whatever. I mean, Joe Nathan, he was great there for a stretch. He was dead arm early, and he struggled this last week. But you don't give up on things right now in the 1st of June.
No, you can't. Even though Joe Nathan was a bit suspect in the first couple of weeks, he settled down, became Joe Nathan that we're used to seeing against the Tigers. One bad outing doesn't change things, especially when they are still in first.
Now, July 1, if you're still having issues, then you can go in that trade market the way they've done pretty much every summer and answer some of these problems.
All right, here's what you should think about as a Tiger fan. You got the Blue Jays and the Red Sox coming into town, 2 red-hot teams that are both playing really good baseball. The Red Sox lost 9 in a row, but then they won 6 in a row. After that, you have 14 straight games against the American League Central. So you're talking about a chance for separation. And a month from now, like you said, July 1st, we could say, oh, what were we worried about? Or amp it up a little bit.
Suddenly it's a tight race. Last year they just destroyed Cleveland, everywhere, home, away, and it became a runaway. I don't know. Does any team in the Central scare you guys yet? No. Kansas City's a mess. Chicago's been better than I think people thought. But, it's still the AL Central.
You need some long starts from the starters.
Yeah.
You got to get the starters, give you some innings here.
And it maybe starts today with Scherzer.
All right, this is where I usually toss to Jeremy with the people.
Want me to do it?
Yeah, I'd like you to do it.
No problem. I can do this. So, Jeremy with the people typically, but this guy loves cartoons, loves comics, loves those superhero movies. So he was chomping at the bit to get out to Comic-Con, and here's what he came up with. Brad with the people.
We are at Motor City Comic-Con looking for comic book fans who are also sports fans to test their knowledge and see how they can infuse their own superhero world into the Detroit sports world. This should be fun. Your costume is a Riley Sheehan costume?
Yeah.
Who are you?
I'm Reese.
Who are you dressed up as?
Name's Superman.
Yes, you are. High five, bud. Who's got the biggest gun in Detroit sports?
Verlander.
All right, I'm scared. Who is the scariest Detroit athlete if he were a supervillain?
Pavel Datsyuk, if he chose to use his powers for evil.
Probably any of the backup pitchers for the relief pitchers from Tigers, any of them.
I'd probably do Miguel Cabrera.
What would his superpower be?
Probably super speed.
Super speed. I think you got the wrong Cabrera.
Yeah.
Miguel Cabrera.
He'd be scary?
Yeah.
What would his superpower be?
Super strength.
He's like a lightning bolt, right?
Yes, watch that. You're going to hit me with that or what?
Yes, I am.
Jeez! If Calvin Johnson was a superhero, what superhero would he be?
Well, I would actually just go with Megatron. I mean, he has the nickname Megatron. What else would he have to be?
Captain America. Who's the best captain in Detroit sports ever?
Mark the Bird Fittrich.
Best captain, Isaiah Thomas.
Are you guys sports fans and comic book fans?
Yes.
All right, let's do this. Can you name the Fantastic Four?
Sue Storm, Reed Richards, Ben Grimm, and Johnny Storm.
The Invisible Woman. The Thing. Wow.
How about the Tigers starting rotation?
Oh boy.
Give me three of them.
Three of them. You got Miggy. You got, oh shoot.
Could you name the Russian five?
The Russian Five.
Konstantinov, Fetisov, Fedorov, Larionov, and Kozlov.
We got it. We got it. The Russian five and Fantastic Four. We got them. Okay, I was not trying to dupe anybody. And before I asked them any questions, I said, are you a sports fan and a comic fan? Yes. Those were the results.
I would have loved the guy to rattle off like Gorbachev, Putin, Lenin, Stalin, you know.
Was that Donald Sterling's girlfriend with the mask on there or no? Yeah.
Don't tell.
Okay.
Mike Foss's wife was in there, too. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
All right, when we come back, we're going to hit on some more hot button issues like Donald Sterling selling the Clippers for $2 billion. Jayru Campbell, what is his future at Cass Tech? So much, and we're just getting started. Use the hashtag 7SportsCave and keep the conversation flowing, and we'll get the engines revving. This is the Fast 5 Minutes presented by Parts Galore here on the Suburban Ford 7 Sports Cave. We're moving position, so we're also going to do the cup
fast
game too.
man.
What's under the cup?
It's under that one.
You win. So a big issue that came up this past week, the future of Cass Tech quarterback Jayru Campbell, who had at one time committed to play football at Michigan State. That commitment seems to be withered away, but sentenced to 60 days in jail after some counseling. And your reaction at first overall, John, to the sentencing?
Well, I mean, obviously it's a tough situation all the way around, but actions have consequences, and that's the lesson that needs to be learned here. And hopefully, you know, the jail. Some people have an issue with the length and the severity of the sentence. I think, you know, he got away from a felony. I think it's fair to say he got off easy in some respects. And if he learned any lesson from this, maybe this will help that lesson hold, that actions do have consequences and you can't just do whatever you want to do, even if you're the star athlete. That's the hope that can come out of this.
You know, it goes back to kind of what I was talking about with the Lions and the constant attention on these types of stories throughout the year. Allen Iverson had the same type of thing happen to him back when he was in high school. I wouldn't even know anything about it. These are issues that can be overcome. 57 days in jail is going to be an enormous eye-opener for this kid. But let's give him a chance to rehabilitate himself. He seems to be contrite at this point. It was a horrific thing that he did, but hopefully he will learn from it and he will become a better person, and we'll see if he can make himself better. And he's not going to come back till the season begins. That'll be interesting in September.
It will be interesting to see. If you looked at what Dan Gilbert said earlier this week about the Detroit Pistons, another thing that got people stirring, because he at one point said that the Pistons should not be called the Detroit Pistons because they don't play in Detroit proper. Sam Van Gundy didn't like that, do you?
Well, it's completely understandable. And, you know, Dan Gilbert, as the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers and a person who's so heavily invested in the city of Detroit, is going to get that jab in as many times as he can. And the stage is being set because the new arena is being built downtown, and there's a lot of conjecture about whether or not the Pistons might play there. Would it be cool to see them play there? Yeah. I'd love the concept of actually both teams maybe doing a little swap where they play maybe 10 games a year, Red Wings up at the Palace, Pistons down at the new arena. I don't think we'll ever see that happen. happen because of the separation of church and state, Illich and Doris, but it would be cool.
Well, yeah, and people are criticizing Dan Gilbert for being self-serving because of everything that he has invested around what would be the Pistons playing downtown. I don't care. It's city serving. That's what we need. We need more business downtown. And how big a business would that be coming downtown? I have no problem with him constantly, as you said, poking the bear a little bit. Tom Gorsuch said he'd be open to talking to Dan Gilbert about it. So let's talk about it. Keep talking about it. I'm fine with it.
Under the buzzer, you guys got it in there. That was pretty impressive. There it is. Well, the Clippers sold earlier this week for $2 billion. Donald Sterling out of the NBA. I think we can all agree that's a good thing. Are these absurd prices a good thing, a bad thing? You're a columnist. You get to write about national things a lot. You get to see this a lot. Is this good or bad?
Well, depends on who you are, but you know what? Who it's good for? It's good for Tom Gorsuch. It's good for all these other NBA owners because, and Adam Silver, who's 6 months on the job, has already gotten rid of Donald Sterling and now has made probably hundreds of millions for all the rest of his owners. The Milwaukee Bucks sold for $550 million. People thought that was crazy. This team was valued at something like $600-700 million. It just sold for $2 billion. Labor peace through 2017. The players are now looking at that last labor contract they signed and thinking, boy, did we really get taken? Because they don't share in these profits. The owners are striking it rich.
You know what they should do if you're Tom Gorsuch? Lower ticket prices. Now you know what your team is worth when you're going to sell this thing. You got 8,000-9,000 people coming to the Palace at Auburn Hills. More people will come if you lower the price. It may sound sacrilege, but if you're concerned about your long-term standing here with your franchise that you're trying to rebuild, let's get more people in the seats. And you know you're getting that money in the back end when you sell it. You can cut those ticket prices by $10 per. Come on, Tom Gorsuch, do it.
Good luck.
That's the ultimate point, I think, in all of this. If you look at what the Pistons have done the past few years, it's basically put groups in there with the ticket sales. Good call. I like it. The NBA Finals predictions, Miami has no problem selling tickets. Neither do the San Antonio Spurs. We get a rematch. Who's winning?
I think the San Antonio Spurs are going to win this thing. Woo! And I brought up a topic last night on Twitter about the Spurs. How many of those guys are Hall of Famers? And I think you got all three when you talk about Parker, Ginobili, and Duncan, who's obviously a shoo-in. And then I said, well, would they be Hall of Famers if they were in the NFL? And I think the answer there would be no. Because if you have a guy like Tim Brown, who's not in the NFL with everything that he did, I don't think a Manu Ginobili would make it. But when you look at the body of work, the resume of these guys, they can put a nice cherry on top of their individual Sundays by beating this Heat team, and I think they're going to do it this year.
To think that you could win a title in '99 with a star player and a coach and then come back, 15 years later and win another title is unbelievable in any league, let alone the NBA. I'm going to pick the Heat. I think their offense right now with Chalmers, with Ray Allen hitting shot, he's going to win a game with a shot at the buzzer. But here's what I would say. Without Tony Parker, who didn't play the end of that game last night, even if he's 50% or 75%, I don't think it happens for the Spurs.
It would have been much juicier had we had the Thunder, but I think a lot of people are looking for the Spurs to get some redemption against this Heat team. It'll be a good series, I think, bottom line, with or without Parker. Well, whoever the Rangers draw in the Stanley Cup Finals, it's going to be a great series. We've had an awesome Western Conference Final with Chicago and L.A. Whoever gets there, John, who do you think ends up with the cup?
Against, home ice used to be as well. You'll find out in Game 7 what it's worth. It hasn't been worth that much
anymore.
here lately in the NHL either. And Daryl Sutter, the Kings coach, has won a ton of these Game 7s. He's got a guy, Justin Williams, watch for him to score some crazy goal tonight. I think the Kings will win this one despite, the way the Blackhawks have sort of recreated the magic they had last year against the Red Wings. I would go with them. And I think Jonathan Quick, neither goalie's played great in this series. Jonathan Quick has the talent to just come up and pull a Carey Price in Game 7.
Love it. I'm disagreeing with you all day. 1994, I was a senior in college. I had just graduated. It was a magical year in New York City, and I grew up a Rangers and a Knicks fan. That was an awesome summer. I think that Lundqvist is going to get hot, and I think you cannot underestimate the absolute magic that overcomes a city when they make that push for the Stanley Cup. I think the Rangers will get it done. I think New York will go crazy, and I think that Henrik Lundqvist will be the main reason why they win the Stanley Cup for the first time in 20 years.
I think the iconic shot from the Eastern Finals, especially in that final game, was when his leg kicked up. He saved the puck that bounced right underneath there and kept it out. He's been fantastic. So has Quick. I think we're in store for some good finals. Well, as you did for me, I'll introduce a fun little segment you did in the Sports Cave earlier this week with Ryan Briscoe. 3 segments today. This is the first of a new game show debuting right here on the Sports Cave called Aussie Answers.
Welcome into Aussie Answers. It is the challenge of the week for Ryan Briscoe. We're going to find out just how well he knows his homeland. And we're going to start the first round, 5 questions, each of them with a point value. We start with the 100-point question for you, Mr. Briscoe. In what state or territory was the highest temperature ever recorded in Australia, 53 degrees Celsius?
I'm going to go with the Northern Territory.
You do not get that correct. Queensland is the right answer. The 200-point question. Australia has the world's largest sand island. What is that sand island's name?
Is it Fraser Island?
You are correct, and he's up to 200 points. The 300-point question. Who is older, Paul Hogan or Olivia Newton-John?
Paul Hogan.
Correct.
Yes.
He's up to 500 points. The 400-point question. What was the name of the character that Olivia Newton-John played in the movie Grease?
No.
He does not get that. The correct answer, and I'm sure many of you know this, is Sandy. Danny and Sandy.
Of course it was.
Of course. So you're stuck on 500. Here's the 500-point question, the final question of the first round. How many times has Australia hosted the Olympics?
Twice.
Correct. 1956.
And 2000.
So he finishes the first round with 1,000 points. The question is, in the second round, will he get to the 3,000-point threshold? If he does, he qualifies for the grand prize. You're going to have to come back and find out if together.
We'll see how many answers he knows. Ryan Briscoe is starting 5th in today's second duel in Detroit. I'm intrigued. I want to know what's coming up next with all
He had
this.
a shot at winning yesterday. I thought he might pull it off there.
Ran out of time.
Yeah.
All right, we promised you more Lions talk on this show. And coming up next, hear it from the horse's mouth, I guess you could phrase it. One of the team captains the past few years, Stephen Tulloch, joins me in the cave to talk about leadership, what's next, what he likes about Jim Caldwell, and why he says it was time for a change.
The Suburban Ford 7 Sports Cave is brought to you in part by Hungry Howie's.
The Suburban Ford 7 Sports Cave, I guess we could call it a special edition.
Absolutely.
Live this
Outdoor
week.
cave.
Yeah, baby. Live. Outdoor cave. John Niyo, Tom Leyden, Brad Galli doing it rough outside this week.
Yeah.
Race cars behind us. It's a fun weekend. And Lions football is in the, I guess you could say, near distance. We're climbing. We're getting there. Stephen Tulloch stopped by the cave this week. He's got a lot of fantastic community initiatives going on that we'll touch on in the interview, but also some interesting thoughts about Jim Caldwell, Jim Schwartz. Stephen stopped by after practice earlier this week. So Stephen's here just off practice, and it's kind of relaxing on these couches, doesn't it?
It's nice, man. It feels good. Just want to sleep for a little while.
All right, but we need you to talk, too, because you got an exciting thing going on. A lot of exciting things. I mean, we got decorations going on here. You said after, well, I think it was in the first minicamp practices, that you could already sense a different Lions team. Why is this year different already?
It's been a lot of fun. You know, I'm 9 years, and I feel like a kid all over again, man. Just the fact that, you know, we have a new regime, man, and, you know, much respect to Schwartz. You know, he's given me opportunity 9 years coming to this lead, but I think the change is at the right time. I think Coach Caldwell brings accountability, leadership. He's been to Super Bowl. You know, he understands what it takes to get to that next step, and guys are receptive to it. You know, we have a leadership committee. You know, we can talk to him. He takes our input, and, you know, he treats us like men. As long as we go out there and do what we have to do.
What's the leadership committee all about?
You know, just certain guys from different groups, and we can get together and talk about certain things, you know, with the head coach, and just trying to, you know, pinpoint, you know, our opinions, and, you know, get his feedback, and, you know, it's cool. You know, like I mentioned before, he treats us like men, and, you know, it's, you know.
Is that different than what it had been?
A little bit different. You know, it's unique, man. I think, you know, starting back to when Coach Caldwell got here, you know, just taking each group out to dinner and just talking to the players, and everybody's just growing in tight together.
You've been through it, like you said, for a long time, though. Is this something that you feel is different than a flash in the pan, kind of just on the surface thing? Do you feel like it's real, like it is bonding that can be a part of something bigger?
I think this team takes the next step. Things are being addressed that, you know, probably weren't addressed in the past, and things are being corrected, and you can see.
Like what, if I can? I mean, like things that have been addressed, because that's a big thing on the outside.
Just everybody's accountable. Everybody's on point, and, you know, Coach Caldwell brings the aura about himself, and just a respect factor. Just, you know, he's been there.
If you follow Stephen on Twitter, or you follow any of the Lions on Twitter, you've got an exciting deal going on to try to help Detroit schools. What is it? Bring people up to speed.
Well, Detroit's like my second home. You know, this is, you know, I started my 6th year in the NFL here in Detroit, and, ever since I came to Detroit, it's been an obligation, as I can say, to be able to put more into the community. We started to try to raise money this particular year for Detroit public schools. Crowd Rise is a unique situation where we can raise money, and if I win, which I'm anticipating on winning this actual event, crowdrise.com /Tulloch55 is the first step, and hopefully people can donate and we can raise money to give kids computers, school materials, different things that the kids might need to help them better themselves in school.
It's kind of a neat combo because you're giving stuff away too while you're helping kids.
It is. It's pretty cool. I know each fan has their favorite player, and it's cool this year that the way we have it set up is Reggie Bush and Calvin Johnson and different players on the team have their own teams.
Those aren't just names. I mean, those are big time names across the NFL. Right?
Big time guys, and they do a lot for the team and a lot for the community, and they're partnering with the Crowd Rise and what I'm trying to do here to help the Detroit Public Schools. So you can go on and donate to in particular team or player that you like, and we're raising money. Basically, we have different perks. For people that raise money to be able to come out to training camp or invited to a game. It's all about giving back and helping these less fortunate kids and give them opportunity to succeed in what they want to do.
When they're involved in a project like this, is there talk within the locker room about trying to help you out and help these kids out?
There's a lot of talk in the locker room. And particularly now, yes, Crowd Rise is a big talk, but everybody's geeked up about the softball game. We're getting more of that right now. I take it personal. I've been here a couple years and I haven't won. Nate Burleson's been beating me the last couple of years.
But he's gone. So
he's
now
gone.
It's the defense's time.
So
I can smell it a little bit.
It's the defense's time, and hopefully we can get some guys to show out this year. We can take over and win this game.
I knew you were coming, so I wanted to make it. I wanted to make you feel a little special. I got the Miami.
You got to get those on camera.
Miami
They're
coach
pretty
going on
sweet.
for you.
They're pretty sweet.
Always trying to make you feel comfortable. Thanks for all you do.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Dude, I'd be afraid to go into your closet. You whip out stuff all the time. I'm like, where the heck did that come from?
My grandma gave me those because I went to Marquette. Dwayne Wade has his own sock line, so they're Miami socks. Steven's from Miami. It all comes together.
Steven is worried about this game, though, because the defense has never won, as he talked about. Golden Tate just went down to batting practice at Comerica Park and hit one over the fence.
Wow.
Just
Which
Calvin has already done.
And he said Calvin's been talking the most junk about this game, so he expects Calvin to play next week.
He's talking about trades. I don't know if it's going to work.
Hey, quick point about Steven. Steven's got to get better. He's really, really good, but for this team to get better, the best players have to get better and have to improve. I'd love to see him raise his game up to the next level, and he'd be the first one to tell you that he needs to do that for this team to succeed.
Without a doubt, one of the people in the sport behind us, IndyCar, that raised his game to the next level, Ryan Hunter-Reay, won the Indy 500, and he joins Tom Leyden to talk all about what this crazy week has been like since he won, next on the 7 Sports Cave.
Ladies.
Hey, this is what happens when you take the Suburban Ford 7 Sports Cave outside.
That is a tough assignment for whoever's shooting that.
We can stay on that shot for a little bit. And we're back. So, the perks, the perks of winning the Indy 500 come a long way. You had a chance to talk with the winner this week, Tom.
Yeah, Ryan Hunter-Reay has had a terrible week here in Detroit. And in speaking with Lauren Cannon yesterday, it's almost to be expected because there's so much attention on that race, and this is such a different setup, and there are so many distractions. I'll be surprised if someone who wins the Indy 500 comes here and wins the next week. All that being said, I did get a chance to talk with Ryan Hunter-Reay on the banks of the Detroit River earlier this week, and he talked about that whirlwind couple of days after taking the checkers in Indy.
Is there anybody who reached out to you, called you, who you hadn't heard from in a long time that may have surprised you, that really might have made your week?
A lot of people that I haven't heard from in a long time. I mean, I came back to the motorhome after the race, and I think I had something like 400 text messages, and it was just, it's overwhelming. I haven't got back to all of them yet, so sorry to anybody I haven't got back to you. But just on Twitter, everything, Facebook, it's just been, Miami Dolphins are my favorite team, and Brian Hartline from there wrote me right away. Jimmy Johnson, after he won the race in NASCAR down in Charlotte, he wrote me right away after that one. And it's just, that's how it's been. But I guess that's what happens when you end up on top at the biggest race in the world.
You think about what your face is going to look like on that Borg Warner trophy?
Hopefully it won't be too bad, but they do a great job with it, and I just can't wait to see that. I can't wait to take my son back there when he can actually understand what's going on, and we can share that moment.
What a great winner. He knows everything that comes along with it. And as the tweets continue to roll in, we want more Tom, we want more Tom. So let's give the people more Tom and more Ryan Briscoe in the second segment of Aussie Answers.
More Tom.
It is round 2 of Aussie Answers. We start with Ryan Briscoe, who has 1,000 points on the board. He has to get to 3,000 points to earn the grand prize as we test his knowledge of his home country. The 200-point question in round 2. In Australian currency, what animal was featured on the back of the 2-cent coin before it was discontinued in 1991?
Platypus.
Close. The frill-neck lizard.
Oh, you're right.
The 400-point question. What band took the United States by storm in 1987 with its Kick album?
You know, I was born in the 1980s, right?
This is a classic band. Michael Hutchins is my clue.
AC/DC.
Oh, good guess, but no, In Excess. 600-point question. As you're stuck on 1,000. What is South Australia's largest island? What's the animal that's most associated with Australia?
The Tasmanian Devil.
The next one.
The kangaroo. Kangaroo Island.
Kangaroo Island. Should we give it to him? What do we think? Should we give it to him? Judges say yes, we should give it to him. So he's up to 1,600 points. The 800-point question. Name Australia's westernmost point.
Perth.
Steep Point. Shark Bay.
Okay.
Does that qualify? You maybe know better.
No.
All right.
I've never been over there.
So now we're up to the 1,000-point question. If you get this, it'll get you up to 2,600. Who is the most decorated Australian Olympian of all time? What Australian Olympian has won the most medals?
It's a swimmer, right?
It is.
It's Ian Thorpe.
Bam! So he gets himself up to 2,600 points, which does not get him to the threshold we need to win the grand prize.
Wow.
So we're going to take a break. We'll come back. We'll have one final question to see if Ryan Briscoe can earn the grand prize right here on Aussie Answers.
Oh, that's drama. That's suspense. Thrills galore. Literally on the edge of my seat right now. I'm teetering with excitement.
I hope he gets there. I'm a little worried for him.
Got to come back and watch. He knows his country. Hey, we're just talking about social media. Use the hashtag 7SportsCave. We've been blabbering. We want to hear from you. What's cooking? What's on your mind on this busy sports Sunday? We'll get it cooking on the Suburban Ford 7 Sports Cave.
The Suburban Ford 7 Sports Cave is powered by Suburban Ford of Sterling Heights, Michigan's largest dealer. Visit us at saveoncars.net.
Thanks for starting your Sunday morning with us on the Suburban Ford 7 Sports Cave. We'll be positioned here all day with our Grand Prix coverage. And part of the action that's going on this week, the Lions, Tigers, all the sports going on. Mike Foss, our man, checking it out. Back home in the cave, Mike, what are the people saying back there, bud?
Well, we were talking earlier about Martin Mayhew. We got a couple tweets on him, but first let's get to one other tweet regarding the Donald Sterling situation. Joseph says Donald Sterling definitely won in this instance, drove up the price of the Clippers by more than 2 times their worth. And then, as I mentioned, a couple tweets regarding Martin Mayhew. Daniel says Mayhew is the NFL equivalent of Joe D and the Pistons. And the other one, Jim, says both Mayhew and Lewan tied to the hip of Caldwell after Caldwell declared the time is now. Guys?
The bar is high. The time is now.
So is he predicting a Lions championship then here in a few years? Joe did win a title.
It's got to be. I mean, that's the thing. Get your mind right. Win playoff games. Go there consistently. Win championships. You got to get there. And I can't understand that. It shouldn't be fantasy land.
No,
and
win now,
in the NFL,
now
especially in the NFL.
No, win now has to be the motto in the NFL because there is, a short shelf life for everything in the NFL now. It's got to be win now.
A lot of drivers are going to try to win now today, so I've got a busy show going on later on. I'm going to have to step aside, and especially with our high school play of the week, this is the second time that our friends at State Champs have picked someone against Brother Rice.
Don't leave yet. We still got to find out if Ryan Briscoe is going to win the grand prize.
Oh, my gosh. I'm so nervous.
Final segment of Aussie Answers.
I'm just worked up.
It's all led up to this. We're in the final round of Aussie Answers. We're with Ryan Briscoe, and he has 2,600 points. He needs 3,000 to gain the grand prize, and he has to risk at least 400. You might as well risk it all because it's either make or break.
I'll risk it all. I'm in. All in.
The final question of Aussie Answers. Time on the clock, please. He has 15 seconds to answer if necessary. What Australian band, formed in 1973, was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2003?
I'm going to go with AC/DC.
Bam! And he wins, and with that, Ryan Briscoe eclipses the 3,000-point mark, and he wins our grand prize. And I know you are waiting, dying to know what the grand prize is. The grand prize comes in 2 parts.
Oh, look at that.
It's a Barbie.
But is she Australian?
And it's some shrimp. Now I'd recommend
shrimp
on the Barbie. Congratulations, Ryan Briscoe, the champion of Aussie Answers.
Shrimp on the Barbie, mate.
I give him full credit.
Well played.
He came up with that grand prize.
That was awesome.
Yeah. Now I'm going to do the play of the week.
And now I leave.
See you later, buddy.
See you next week on the Sportscape. These guys are taking you home. Bye-bye.
You're going to understand why Brad's walking off because
Don't go away,
Upset
Matt.
Special of the Week brought to you by our friends at State Champs. Brother Rice was knocked out of the Division I baseball in the Prix districts on Tuesday afternoon. Bottom of the third. West Bloomfield's Chandler see that. Yeah, I see that. That's going over the fence.
See that, Brad?
Brad, you see that?
Don't.
The Lakers won it 4-3. Oh no, that put them up 4-3. They upset the Warriors 9-7. Not that we're piling on, but you know, Brother Rice has enjoyed success. We feel bad for those kids, but
See
congrats
that, Brad? Go
to West
away.
Bloomfield. Our final thoughts on the sports game coming up after this.
The Suburban Ford Sports Cave is brought to you by Wallside Windows. We can do that. We are the factory. Parts galore. Pull your own auto parts and save big bucks. And Feiger Law, trial lawyers, civil, criminal, appeals.
Thanks for hanging with us here on the Suburban Ford 7 Sports Cave. Brad Galli has kind of scurried off to his position where he'll join us for Countdown to the Checkered Flag at noon. But now it's time for our final thoughts. And, John, you get to kick it off because why would I go first?
Yeah, exactly. $40 million sounds like a lot of money until you divide it 100,000 ways or so, and then it starts to feel more like a tax return that's spent before you know it. But let's just call it a down payment because this $40 million settlement between EA Sports and all those college players who've been starring on Xboxes long after they've graduated is only the start. The news on this case came down late Friday night, so you might have missed it. But don't worry, there's bigger lawsuits with bigger stakes to come. And no matter how hard the NCAA tries to put these things off, and believe me, they've been trying really, really hard. Everyone knows the jig is up now. The Ed O'Bannon case that's due in court next week could end the monopoly on TV money. Jeff Kessler, the guy who brought free agency to the NFL 20 years ago, is going all antitrust on their heads. And win or lose, it won't end there. It can't really, because the NCAA power brokers really, if they finally cough up a fair share of the gold they've been hoarding. They just sold the rights to the new BCS playoff for about $7 billion. The Final Four deal is worth more than $10 billion. Start adding all that up, and you realize pretty quickly that $40 million is just changing the couch cushions to these guys. Threaten them with foreclosure, though, and they'll be happy to hand it over. And finally, someone's doing exactly that.
That's incredible when you put those numbers in perspective. Thanks for that perspective, John. And let's get you my final thought of this week. And it centers right here on Belle Isle. There are big names in this community who have invested a lot of their heart and soul into what we've experienced over the course of the last few days. You will not find a better team than Roger Penske, Bud Denker, Merrill Kane, the people who dedicate so much of their lives to what goes on here over the course of 3 days at the end of May, the beginning of June, every single year. The commitment from Quicken Loans, the commitment from Chevrolet should say a lot about what these people have in their hearts for the city of Detroit. And all they ask of you, after they've spent millions of their dollars, both corporately and personally, is to dip into your pocket a little bit and spend a great day here on the island. I strongly encourage you to do so. You will not be disappointed. These are first-class people who have put together a first-class event. And whether or not you're a race fan, come on out here and have your eyes open because you're going to look around at this beautiful park and say, wow, these guys have done a great job. And they certainly have.
No, and to touch on that, I came out here yesterday, like I said, with my son, and he had a blast. The lines are long getting out of here at the end of the day. Everybody's heading on. The shuttle buses are rolling through there like crazy. It's like clockwork. And Bud Denker's out there at the front of the line, making sure everybody's getting where they need to go and getting on in a timely fashion. It really was well run, and that's what you can expect when you come out here. It's a great day.
You know, Bud Denker's track record speaks to the fact that he's not afraid to roll up his sleeves, and he will do whatever it takes at Roger Penske's direction to make sure that you're going to have a fantastic
And we saw
time.
it 2 years ago when the track kind of had issues. They turned that thing into a great race, even despite all the headaches they had. And they had some flooding out here earlier in the week. They handled it all perfect.
Now, I hesitate to pick a winner in this race, but I'm going to put you on the spot. Well, I got a couple hours.
I need to call my 7-year-old to tell you. He'll tell me who's going to win. He told me Will Power yesterday. I'll go with Elio because I think he looked great yesterday until, the yellow flag sort of played havoc with everybody. But I'll go with him.
All right, Takuma Sato has qualified first. He's in the pole position for this second race. He's followed by James Hinchcliffe and Elio Castroneves. Stick with us on 7 here over the course of the next few hours because we have you covered. All kinds of great content, starting with our countdown to the checkered flag coming up. Vic and Alicia will be joining me here on the set. And then at 2 o'clock, Stephen and Carolyn will join us here. We have Lauren Cannon and Brad Galli in the pits. Dave Rexroth is on the scene in the fan zone.
Got everybody out here, man.
It is the all-star cast ready to bring you the best and brightest of Belle Isle. We've enjoyed doing it throughout the entire week, and we've got a few more hours to go. Big
more
thanks
fun
to you,
hours to go, too.
John Niyo from the Detroit News. Always great to have him with us. It is Indy Weekend here at Belle Isle, and we love bringing you this edition of the Suburban Ford 7 Sports Cave live on location from our set here just outside the casino. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you in a couple of minutes. Vic Faust and Alicia Smith join me right here on Belle Isle.